Yep. Does it works better that way sometimes?
Almighty brain.
Hey,
It obviously doesn't work. You will be silent.
Hey folks, we'll go ahead and begin. So this is our first dual credit lecture. Just keep in mind that this is the same content that I lecture over on the non-dual credit course. So if for some reason something gets messed up, you can always just go back a day and see whatever we missed. Today we're going to start the Gilded Age. I'm also going to post the notes that we go over on Canvas. And you can check there. Of course, you also got the Canvas notes that came with it. So, all right. So yeah, this picture up here. Here we have some of, some people call them robber barons. You can call them captains of industry. You have Andrew Carnegie, or he called himself Carnegie because it's Irish background, and whispering in his ear, this J.P. Morgan, big guy. So this is a time period where we have a lot of people getting super rich. You also have the growth of middle class. So there is some economic growth in that sector as well. The growth of cities, industry. You're going to see communication and travel. And also the sense of America is becoming less and less of an isolated country and more part of the international community, I guess you could say. Now, please keep in mind that a lot of the things that happen here are an outgrowth of what was going on before and especially during the U.S. Civil War and then through Reconstruction. So a lot of the ideas of industry and a lot of its growth and development is going to be during the Civil War, as is the growth of the federal government. Before the Civil War, I mean, the federal government basically just did the mail and they did the military, and even that was mostly just for Indian fighting and things like that. Now, of course, those things don't go away, but with the Civil War, you start seeing the federal government is doing things like they're making massive orders for supplies. They're helping with the building of railroads. They have bureaucracies going around building schools, helping out with food, education, building churches, helping out with homeless people and things like that. All of that coming from the Civil War. And we're going to see that move on into what we call the Gilded Age. The Gilded Age. So what does gilded mean?
Like plated in gold.
Yeah, plated in gold. I think this term, the Gilded Age, is actually from Mark Twain, right? So Mark Twain was a very cynical author. He always had something kind of glib to say about the United States. It's like he loved the country, but he loved to point out our faults. And so he called this time period the Gilded Age. It's like pretty on the outside, but it's kind of junky, not that great on the inside, less value. And so that's kind of what he's saying here. It's like things are pretty, a lot of industry and innovations, but there's a lot of corruption during this time period. Political corruption, just financial corruption. Not everybody's being treated well, depending on who they are in society. We see the date here is 1877 to 1898. So what happened in 1877? Anybody remember? It was the end of something.
The end of the war.
The end of something after the war.
I thought it was the end of slavery.
It's the end of Reconstruction.
I don't know.
Now, constitutionally, slavery ended during Reconstruction, because then you have the 13th Amendment. Bam, people are free. No more slavery.
Good job, Abraham.
Unless you're in prison. And it kind of says if you're a prisoner, you still use it.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, if you're a prisoner.
They can use prisoners and slaves.
Kinda, yeah.
They use the prisoners to work on the roads.
And also our Capitol building. Like Texas, the capital of Texas was used a lot by prison labor and stuff like that. Building. It's a pretty building. What's funny is like when you go in there, there's like the long line and then they've got the short line. The The long line is when you're going through the metal detector. The short line is if you have a concealed handgun license, and then they just let you go. So yeah, it's kind of funny.
Cool.
All right. So
Well, doesn't that beat the whole point of a concealed handgun if you are then separated from the people who don't have a concealed handgun?
well, yeah, but I mean, what if it's in your hair or your boots? You know, they never know where it is. Well, here's the thing: you just have to have the card. And they're like, well, what's the point of you going through the metal detector if it's legal to carry here as long as you got the card? So that doesn't mean you're carrying; that just means you got the card.
True.
And there's a lot of state troopers there.
It
So
just means if you really want to, you don't even have to have the gun. You can just have the card and skip the whole line.
yeah,
I just don't wanna go
absolutely.
that way.
Yes, let's do it. All right.
Of course, there's some places for
You see this? Don't write all that down. If you don't know what a word means, write down its meaning. But you don't have to write down the whole paragraph. But these are some terms that we're going to need in order to navigate through this unit. This unit, of course, this is generally in line with your textbook. But like I said, the author wants to focus on different things. And I don't know. It's like there's some topics that might take more than one chapter out of the textbook, right? All right, so immigration. Moving from one's homeland to live in another place. And of course, we know, like from your geography, you can have different kinds of immigration. But for our purpose, it's basically, we're going to talk about people mostly from Europe and the British Isles coming to America during this time period. And of course, there is going to be immigration, we'll see, from mainland China and also Japan. We'll get to that in a bit.
like leave. These are what my favorite here.
Urbanization, the migration of people to live in cities. And so if people are coming to cities, cities are growing. It's a more of an urban area. So, industrialization, economic activity characterized by the manufacture of goods. So we're going to see how innovation in industrialization is going to help industrialization and also markets. I mean, there's going to be where factory work is going to be made into a science. They're going to time and test every movement that workers make to make them more efficient. Because the more efficient a worker is, the more that they can produce. And the more they can produce, the more profit there is. However, in some cases, people are going to be treated so much like machines that's going to cause a lot of friction between labor and business owners, right? Well, it's factory owners. Robber baron. No, it's not a name. It's a title, kind of like a derogatory title for wealthy business industrialists from the late 19th century who exploited resources, government, and labor to amass wealth. And we're talking about corruption here. We're talking about people getting like super rich, some of our first millionaires. But yes, some of them were hard workers. They worked themselves up from nothing to have something. They built businesses and they made sure that those businesses worked the best they could. And some of them were doing things like instead they were like bribing judges to rule in their favor, senators to make laws that helped only their company, and stuff like that, right? Nativism, policy advocating for the protection of native population at the expense of immigrants. So nativism is one of those things you see, it's quite common. It goes through different periods of U.S. history. So like, you remember in your 8th grade history, we have talked about the Know Nothing Party, to where you had a group of people who actually believed that the Pope and Catholics were going to invade the United States of America and establish some kind of monarchy.
When asked about what their party believed in, they would just say, no, nothing.
Oh, nothing, yeah. But it was a nativist party, right? And they were mostly just scared of the Irish coming in from the potato famine. They thought the Irish were going to come in and change America, right?
Yeah, because Irish people are famously just extremely Catholic.
Like some of them are.
insane.
Some of
Well,
them-
no. I mean, like
You gotta be
stereotypically,
careful where you
because their country was run by.
Yeah, it used to be. Yeah, it used to be. I mean, a lot of it still is.
I was about to say, it used to be. There's a lot
There's
of
certain parts of it where you have Catholics and Protestants live together, but they still
like
you remember the time of troubles, right? Where they had like people just being assassinated left and right. And so like Protestants more pro England, Catholics tend to be more we want to be our own country. So
that's why you have,
murders.
Southern Ireland
bombs.
that's part of
So there's some places where you just don't shop.
Northern
You don't
Ireland.
go to the same school. Oh yeah. I had a priest and he would talk about, of course he's Catholic. So he would talk about sometimes the British were just like cruel. Like they would line people up, threaten to shoot them and stuff like that. So
I mean, I'm pretty sure every nation did that at some point.
well, you're gonna find a black eye everywhere, but I mean, it doesn't. They're luckily not like they were back when they had the IRA, the terrorist problems and stuff. So it's pretty bad. Yeah, it was one went missing. Like they would do, kind of like in Baghdad. You had people do terrorist activities, but nobody would say anything because they either kind of agree with it or they're just scared. So you get a lot of problems like that.
Yeah, Baghdad's still like that.
Yeah, I would imagine. All right, assimilation, adopting the culture of a nation or group. So it's the idea of where when you move to a country, you become like part of that culture, right? So it's just one of those things. You see this all over the place. It's usually second or third generation immigrants when it happens. Going to schools, making friends, reading, say books back then, not watching TV yet, and all that. So, immigration, urbanization, industrialization, barbarian, assimilation, and of course, there's going to be many other terms. I mean, these aren't everyday terms unless you watch the news all the time. Then I guess you'll see some of these like a lot. But
Such as?
immigration, urbanization, I think.
You see a lot of that. I watch a lot of the news, so I do hear a lot of it.
See, we got cable, so we don't watch news. We listen.
Yeah, it's not that
We cut cable too, but we have like the local station.
Yeah. Well, I check them online a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so
Dad was on the Weather Channel twice.
was he doing it?
Well, no, there was they had like questions from viewers and this question going.
Okay. like the guy after the tornado hits. It was like, I don't know where it go, but the tornado came and got my home.
No, my dad's like a weather nerd, so he likes talking about like he was talking about the tropical depression.
The two tropical hurricanes.
So there's one hurricane that's actually a hurricane pretty much right now. It's
That's the
tropical
first
storm.
one, right?
And the second one came in, and it was like TD14, Tropical Depression 14. And he was talking about how this first one would move on, and dissipate. But the second one's supposed to get here at about a category 2 or 3, and it could very well be like another Harvey because of the jet stream and how it's going to stop it
But
right
which one's
there.
coming to Tyler on
and
Wednesday?
just rain.
So,
Wednesday.
so I should panic about now, right? Or should I wait till tomorrow?
Wait till
No,
tomorrow.
it's in Houston. They'll have like severe flooding like they did on Harvey.
That was bad.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. No, I'm not gonna say it right now. Okay. Heard some stories.
That's pretty much what's going to happen with the second hurricane. The first hurricane
Wait,
won't
what?
be too bad. The
Yeah.
second one's going to be the one that like.
So there's gonna be like some epic flooding. There's gonna be arcs
Sorry,
and
really
wailing.
don't want it not rain.
It's gonna be wet.
I
But
don't
we're way
like
up here.
the rain anyways.
We're up here. We're good.
Yeah, we're fine. We're not going to have
Yeah,
it.
we're just gonna, the grass will grow again. It'll be great.
And
Correct.
cold front. It'll be cooler.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I can live with that.
Oh yes, we be cool.
I don't care though. I made myself acclimate to the heat, and I just didn't care.
I can't. I wish I could.
I just
Well,
no,
when
I'm
you're in the
bummed.
military, you have to.
I'm not really worried. That was like half my life ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 40 next week.
That,
Oh,
no.
Wait, what's that?
Hold up.
A day of the week.
Is it on Sunday?
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, that's Joseph's
No.
birthday.
It's next week. Yeah. Okay. Well,
They just told you.
maybe that.
I
The next
know.
week. No, it's gonna be the next. Well, okay, yeah. Okay.
It's actually today, right?
No. No. Now my wife knows that I used to get my own age wrong. I always thought I was a couple years older than I really was. I don't know why. All right. So I didn't pay attention. All right. So what was the Gilded Age? This era of U.S. history was characterized by, this is an overview. We're going to talk about all these things. The expansion of big business. So that can be good and bad for multiple reasons that we'll talk about. So like the expansion of big business can bring with it lower prices and efficiency and standardization, which is a really cool thing about having factories make things. Standard measurements for things that have replaceable parts, so that if your dishwasher broke last night because the heating coil started smelling like a burnt smell, you can order a new one. And I hope mine's not so old I can't order a new one. All right, so, or
Sounds like
it's something that just happened. All right.
that sounds like something that
The
happened.
rise of labor unions. All right, so labor unions are something. Well, yeah, it's something where we kind of inherit from our relatives in Europe and England and all that other stuff, where they had some earlier ones. And labor unions are, of course, originally there as a piece of bargaining power and protection for workers who have no real legal protection. Back then, there were no really any worker rights laws.
And then they went further than that.
Labor unions are not.
Well,
No, they're groups, they're clubs. Like let's say all the teachers here were like, hey, we're gonna make a union, which is actually illegal in Texas.
Really?
Yeah,
For good reason.
if you're a public servant, and that's like there's not supposed to be police unions or teacher unions.
Well, of course not, but like that's like I've never heard of it.
There really is, but we call them something different. Like they're mostly just like I forgot what the term is now, but they act the same way here. The only thing is though, they're not true unions in Texas because public servants can't go on strike.
Right.
So teachers here and cops and
But
firefighters.
we can.
Well, workers can, yeah. If you want.
Students can.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, what am I gonna do? Throw you in jail?
But teachers can't protest?
I mean, I could protest on the weekend, but I don't have anything to protest at the moment. I mean, I'm like, please don't make me go online. I guess I could say that. But yeah, there's things I don't like, but I'm kind of an outlier. All right. Increasing industrialization, immigration, and urbanization, and each one feeds into the other. Industry, we need workers. Bam, here's some immigrants. Uh-oh, there's all these immigrants here. Bam, urbanization, now you got a place to live.
yeah.
But don't worry, it's not all cheerful. All right, westward expansion continued with the growth of the railroad industry. Duh. If it's easier to move, more people move. And goods too. Necessitating the need for policies to address American Indian tribes. Uh-oh. Yeah. Poor Native Americans, they're not really winners at this time period, I guess you could say.
They really aren't.
Political machines which controlled local politics. Think of a political machine as a local political party that controls everything.
Wow.
Think of it like but also they're kind of like the mob at the same time, like mafia. So, and there's some places where machine politics still kind of work out, like Chicago, from what I understand,
Yeah.
where it's still kind of led by whoever the boss is at top, all their friends get a job.
That's not fair.
No, but that's how it works.
That's why I don't live in a city. All right. During this era, some industrialists took advantage of corrupt government officials to profit politically and economically.
People
Those like
still
those
do
wrong.
that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's how it is. Like, let's say Washington. You have places like, I don't know, I think Yemen's still in a civil war. Well, don't worry. All the sides in the Civil War have paid lobbyists in Washington begging Congress to make laws to where they get funds for weapons and stuff like that.
And
I
given-
mean, now one side gets picked over the other eventually. But yeah, that's how it works. You always have people trying to apply politicians to move certain directions.
So they pay politicians to put bills in place that help Yemen one side of the.
Well, no. They pay lobbyists, and a lobbyist is somebody who's
Yes,
able
I
to
know
get
who-
access to them and talk to them and be like, hey, I got these people here. They are saints on earth. Can we have some bombs? You know, so it's something like that. So
These guys are the best.
this happens all over the place. It's also for industries like, hey, you know, the Google really could use some help in this legal sector because, you know, we're doing a lot to help schools out with those emails. So, you know, things like that. So
Google has a lot more power.
they're very powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
They
And
probably should.
so that's one thing that's kind of funny about now we're living in the age of information. We don't even want to call it the age of technology anymore. So like the age of information is a way you could think about it economically. And yeah, there are some things that
What do you do?
Super
Shut down
powerful.
Google?
All right, you go ahead. You first.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Nobody's gonna be able to do that.
Well, I mean, how do you
Shut
make
down Google.
competition
It's not
for it?
possible.
Really? I mean,
I mean, what's
What's the
gonna be better
competition?
than a platform where we can research anything and everything we want?
Especially the largest.
I don't know. I
They
don't know.
control a lot of, a lot of
You know
what? I
information
bet-
services.
I
Amazon.
I was gonna say Amazon could come up with their own search engine.
Amazon
They could,
controls
They could,
all
Microsoft already tried that with Bing, and
But-
Bing's not nearly as big.
but I thought Amazon was kind of getting canceled because they are like, they treat their workers poorly.
Oh, they do. But
there
that
might-
doesn't stop them.
Yeah, the thing is that
You
is
don't
that
stop
They
the
can
most
afford
rich
the
man.
lawsuit.
You don't stop the most rich man in the entire world.
No, yeah, he's a.
yeah,
what is
COVID
he,
has made
a
them a lot
billion-
bigger. So I don't know.
What is he now? Like he's not a billionaire
He's
anymore.
a
He's like a
trillionaire.
trillionaire. That's what I meant. Trillionaire.
Beats me. It could share. All right.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
the most money in the entire world.
All right. One more.
After
Who knows who this guy is?
After the what?
Indian man.
He's an Apache chief. Yeah, Indian man. But that's not his name. Paratroopers would say his name when they were doing jumps in World War II. They would jump out of the airplane and they would say,
Geronimo.
yeah, Geronimo. So yeah, Geronimo. So this is a time period where a lot of Native Americans are already on the reservations, but now there's still some Indian fighting going on. So like even through Reconstruction, like you had guys like General Sherman, you know, Union Army general, burnt his way through Georgia and his march to the sea, helped defeat the South. Well, he's going to come back. He's going to help be a Comanche fighter, which oddly enough is what Robert E. Lee did before the Civil War. So yeah, so you're still going to have some of these hardened, like
Wait, so he
Apaches
fought for
and
the
stuff.
South?
Hey.
Geronimo?
No, I don't think he was part of the war. Though there were a lot of Native Americans who were on reservations that were like, they didn't like America too much. They were on the reservation, so they did join the South.
Right.
So there were Native Americans who did fight for the Confederacy. So it still didn't work out.
Um,
What? No, you better say it. What?
No, I was just gonna say that they get upset about Robert E. Lee, but they also have indigenous people on the same side.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're still gonna get mad.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a topic of the day. I mean, but see, that's one of those things. I mean,
It's honestly just whatever sounds good to them. To people that.
well, I mean, you're going to notice sometimes that there's certain things that they just seem to have a force of their own, and you can't stop that momentum. And sometimes, like a wave, it'll peter out.
Yeah.
This might be one of them.
Oh.
Maybe. All right, so yeah, well, Geronimo's famously going to fight back and try not to be part of the reservation system, like with the Apache. So it's our last one for the day, by the way. So more and more Native Americans are being put on the reservations to get them out of the way so that people can move out west, open up farmland for what they saw as a useful way to use the land. And also, the United States government during this time period is going to give the United States Railroad a lot of land so that they can build railroads. And where they build railroads, now you have mail service, you can order stuff, you can ship goods.
The transcontinental
Railroad.
rail.
Yeah, and if you remember, that happened during the Civil War.
Yes.
So, and it also is where people can go. I mean, moving out west was dangerous. The last thing you want to do is move out west and you're going to be super isolated because there's no other way for other people to get there. Well, choo-choo trains help out with that. So American migration to the Great Plains region brought about new conflicts after the Civil War. Even after many tribes were forced onto reservations, they were constantly subjected to inspections. See, they always had troops stationed there, right? So they were kind of like policing them. They were disarmed and they fought. And this was hard on a lot of Native Americans, especially Plains Indians, because to Plains Indians, all societies have distinctions between men and women. Well, to a lot of Native American tribes, the idea of farming was always the woman's job. The man wasn't supposed to do that. He was supposed to hunt, be a warrior, do some other stuff. Well, that's not the Western idea of manhood. The Western idea of manhood is like, yeah, sure, you can hunt, you can fight and all that stuff, but a real man is a farmer, on his own plot of land. So the federal government took it, and a lot of missionary groups took it upon themselves to try to not just convert Indians to like American lifestyle, and according to missionaries, we try to convert them to Christianity, but also try to take away their cultural things. Like, no. You need to pick up a plow and start farming. So there was a lot of cultural things that he really didn't like. Massacres on reservations came periodically, such as the Ghost Dance Wars. So this is going to be sparked by you're going to have this one Native American. He's going to be very ill, and he's going to have like a trance-like dream, apparently, like in a fever. And he says from his vision that they need to return back to some of their old spiritual ways, and they start doing what's called ghost dancing.
Sounds like he
No,
ate
is
some
it
bad
scary, like
mushrooms.
bonfire dances?
Something like that. Well, the thing is, some of the soldiers who were there to monitor these guys saw a lot of tribes were doing these dances, and one night, some of them kind of freaked out because they thought it was war dances, and so they lit them up and killed a bunch of Indians. This is going to become a national tragedy. It's actually going to lead the commander of those troops going to D.C. and being put on trial. He will be exonerated though. But yeah, it was kind of embarrassing. What are you doing,
That
Chief?
was very embarrassing. But also, like, can you blame them? That was kind of creepy.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, that's the thing about the people moving out west perception of Indians, and also the Indians' perception, because like a lot of these guys, especially a lot of them were immigrants, right, from like Ireland, Scotland, moving out west, and they had heard stories about Indians, and they thought they were all the same, and they thought they were pretty decking violent. Native Americans, on the other hand, heard the same thing. They heard white guys are coming over, and we know a couple of stories where they're just out slaughtering people. And so, I mean, this builds up like a perception of one another.
Yeah, it's like you only see the bad parts of people.
Well, yeah, and distance does that. That's one of the hard parts about having like cultures live with one another, but not really live with one another, right?
No.
And so, but hey, folks, we're going to have to end the lecture there. We're going to pick up more with political issues from 1877 and 1898. Bye. All right, so I'm going to post lit.